In the name of Allah, the most gracious and most merciful, may the peace and blessings of Allah the Exalted be upon the Prophet Muhammad and his purified progeny, and may the wrath of Allah the Exalted be upon their enemies. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. In the last episode, we focused on a couple of verses which are used by the Nawasib to say that you cannot call upon the Imams. And we defined that calling in many of these verses in the Quran, where Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ تَدْعُونَ وَالَّذِينَ يَدْعُونَ مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ, refer to those calling in worship and worshipping, even according to the exegesis of the Mukhalifin. And our scholars have mentioned this before. I'm not the first one to mention these things, so anyone can probably refer back to other speeches and researchers regarding these matters. Let's watch a clip and see another verse which is commonly used by the Nawasib, especially when confronting Shia pilgrims in Medina and al-Baqi, to try say that you calling upon the Imams or the Prophet is shirk and they cannot hear you, the dead cannot hear. Let us see this clip.
هو الحي فقط غير الله تعالى لا يسمعك يا شيخ. الله يقول إنك لا تسمع الموتى صحيح؟ إنك لا تسمع الموتى كلام الله. كيف تخاطبهم؟ كيف تخاطبهم؟
Dear brothers and sisters, welcome back. As you've seen in the clip, another one of these loudmouth Nasabi propagandists went up to a group of Shias and went up to some Iranian Mu'ammam and wouldn't give them even the chance to properly speak, and kept bombarding him with doubts and questions, or we should say that false doubts, false arguments, and used this particular verse, إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى, that verily you cannot make the dead hear. Now this verse is mentioned where? It's mentioned in two places of the Holy Quran, chapter 27 verse 80 and chapter 30 verse 53, where Allah says, إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى وَلَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاءَ وَلَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاءَ إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدَبِرِينَ. Allah Azza wa Jal, and in the next verse it's the same with a slight variation with a fa on there, فَإِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَ وَلَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاءَ إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدَبِرِينَ. Verily you cannot make the dead hear, nor can you make what? The deaf to hear the call when they flee turning their backs. So he uses these verses to try to show that the dead cannot hear. As we know, dear brothers and sisters, when we visit the Imams alayhim as-salam, when we visit the holy Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, for example, we find a narration from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he says, "Man kana lahu hajja ila Allah azza wa jal," that so whoever has a need to Allah, whoever has a need for Allah azza wa jal, what does he do? He stands next to the Ra's, the head of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, where Imam Hussein alayhi salam is buried, and he says, "Ya Aba Abdullah, ashhadu annaka tashhadu maqami wa tasma'u kalami wa annaka hayy inda rabbik turzaq fas'al rabbaka wa rabbi fi qada'i hawaiji." So what did Imam Sadiq alayhi salam say here? Whoever has a need from Allah, then he stands beside the head of Hussein and he says, "Oh Aba Abdullah, I bear witness that you witness my status and you listen to my words." And in other variations, "Ashhadu annakum tasma'una kalami," I bear witness that you, O Imams, you listen to my words. So in Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, what does he say? That you listen to my words and that you are alive with your Lord and receiving sustenance. So ask your Lord and my Lord for the granting of my needs. So we clearly see here that the Shia belief is that the Imams can listen. Some Jahil Nasabi comes along now and says, "Oh, you've just made your Imams Sami'ul Basir, you've made them the all-hearing and all-seeing, you've made your Imams the same status as Allah." What we do is when we analyze this narration, we see that we're asking Imam Hussein why, according to Imam Sadiq, so that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, due to his high status, asks Allah for us. So we ask Imam Hussein and we bear witness that he is alive. Because the death in this world you transfer to another realm. But obviously the death of the Imams, this is something else to define. But still, there is a type of life, we agree this. With idols there was never any life for them. But we agree for the Imams, for the Prophets, there is another type of life for them. So we say that we bear witness that Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the Imams, when we say it in the plural form, can hear. So does this contradict the verse which the Nasabi brought up, which says, وَإِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى, that you cannot make the dead hear? What is the correct context of this verse? Before I go into that, what I will say is that even when the Shia say that Imams hear, they are not saying that Imams are all hearing Sami'ul Basir. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal, when we say He's all hearing, all knowing, all seeing, this is by His essence. These are attributes, but Allah by His essence is all seeing, all hearing, all knowing. And Allah doesn't need any instruments or limbs in order to hear people. As a human being, the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and us, we need eyes, we need ears. Our hearing is a process and is a type of knowledge. Yes, about someone says, okay, how do the Imams hear? This is a matter of the unseen. We don't know all of these details, of course. We only had limited knowledge as well when it comes to issues of the barzakh, according to the Quran. We don't know all the details of this, so we can't go into this. But we know that the Imams, what? They do not hear by their dhat when they were in this world. We say that Allah is all hearing, all knowing and all seeing by His essence. Allah doesn't even need to have a process. Allah doesn't need limbs. He doesn't need instruments in order to hear. And He's all seeing and knowing by His knowledge and by His essence. So there's a clear difference there. Whereas any creation, their abilities in being able to see and hear are due to the permission of Allah and are not by their essence. They are in need of Allah. Because even in this life, we see what? That some people have different forms of seeing and hearing. Some people can't hear as good. Some people cannot see as good. The levels differ. So even if you say the Imams or the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam can hear due to the permission of Allah, it's not shirk and it's not saying that they're Allah, because we're not saying they are hearing by their dhat. And we're saying that there's no comparison, again, between their hearing and the hearing of Allah. Just like when we say we exist and Allah exists, there's no comparison there. Allah existed without any cause, whereas we existed with a cause. We came in and we will also die. So therefore, when you say Allah hears, the Imam hears, there is no comparison, and only someone with a simple mind or who does not utilize their intellect properly would say that this is shirk and come along and say this. So regarding the dead hearing, for the opinions of the mukhalifin, this is not an issue which is black and white, that is agreed upon completely. It's not agreed upon completely. You find differing opinions amongst their scholars. Some say the dead can't hear after death completely. The dead are not able to hear. Some say that the dead can hear. We find that Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Qayyim, Ibn Kathir, they believed the dead can hear. Of course, some of them gave limited circumstances. They say they can hear in this circumstance and that circumstance, but they did not outright say that the dead are not able to hear in the absolute sense. And then we find that some say only in special circumstances due to a miracle were the dead able to hear. Therefore, there's not one opinion set in stone, even amongst the mukhalifin, about the dead hearing. So this is something that we need to bear into mind. So this ayah, إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. Allah Azza wa Jal in this ayah is addressing the Prophet Muhammad. O Muhammad, you cannot make the dead hear. Who are the dead? Allah Azza wa Jal is giving a metaphorical example in this verse that the stubborn mushrikeen are like the dead. Ya Muhammad, there's no point of talking to them. No matter how much you talk to these stubborn mushrikeen, they are like the dead in the graves who cannot benefit from these beautiful words of guidance. This is what Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying in the verse. إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. That you cannot make, O Muhammad, verily those stubborn mushrikeen who want to close their ears, who do not want to listen and accept your words into their hearts, to hear. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving a parable, we can say. He is giving a comparison of the mushrikeen, of the polytheists of Quraysh and Mecca as being dead He compares them to being like dead. Once a person's in his grave, that's it. Any words you give to him, his final judgment is there. He's been in the grave, he's lived his life. The words will not benefit. So the stubborn mushrikeen, as we said, they are like the dead because speaking the word of truth will not benefit them. And it's very clear that this is metaphorical, dear brothers and sisters. Yeah, some might say Aisha, she recited this verse, but we don't take Aisha as a hujjah. And the companions of Aisha and the son of ibn Umar, they differed on this issue of dead hearing. Where did the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam use this verse to say the dead cannot hear? إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. Oh Muhammad, you cannot make the dead hear, meaning these stubborn mushrikeen. When you go to the next part of the verse, وَلَا تُسْمِعُ الصُّمَّ الدُّعَاء إِذَا وَلَّوْا مُدْبِرِينَ. Nor can you make the dead hear the call when they turn backward. Again, it's clear that this is another metaphor showing that the mushrikeen, the polytheists, had a type of spiritual deafness. The word of haqq, the word of truth from our beloved messenger, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it won't have effect on them because they are choosing to be stubborn and resist the haqq. Some people, they know the haqq. They know the haqq within their hearts. They know the truth, but they still resist it due to pride. If you want to be a humble servant of Allah Azza wa Jal and live a spiritual lifestyle and enjoy the truth, you must put all of your pride down. So the next verse, when we go after this, it makes it clear, nor can you make the deaf hear. These mushrikeen, they were not literally deaf. They could hear the words of the Prophet, but they chose to put veils over their eyes and they chose to put the blocking on their hearing because they were too stubborn to accept the truth. So they have spiritual, how we can say, deafness, and they are compared to like the dead, according to Allah Azza wa Jalla. So when the Nasibi comes along and says, إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى, the deaf do not hear, this verse is what? Metaphorical, and it cannot be used as a direct proof. Why? Because even the mukhalifin themselves the so-called Sunnis have much disagreement and difference in regards to what can be heard and who can hear, etc. We even go to the next verse, or we go to verse 81. What does Allah say? إِن تُسْمِعُوا إِلَّا مَن يُؤْمِنُوا بِآيَاتِنَا فَهُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Nor can you lead the blind out of their error. You can only make hear those who believe in our ayat and have submitted themselves as Muslims. They become those of the submitters. So again, we look at the next verse. What? We see another metaphorical meaning, showing that these verses are not literally talking about that the dead cannot hear. Let me give an example in English. When I say I'm speaking to a wall, describing a person, this person, it's like I'm speaking to a wall. Do I mean literally that the person's a wall? Because according to the literalist, Salafi interpretation, when I speak to this person, it is like me saying, it would be that I'm speaking to an actual wall. I should consider him that he's a wall, according to the way that many of the Salafis understand the Quran. But no, when I say I'm speaking to a wall, I'm saying that this person, is pointless of me speaking to him. I'm wasting my time, you're wasting your time. He's like a wall. You're speaking to him, but nothing's happening there. He won't listen to your words, he won't take heed of your advice. So just like Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran uses these metaphors such as deaf, dumb and blind, that the mushrikeen are like the dead, they're like the amwat, we find these examples in the English language. Anyone can relate to this. So it's very simple, dear brothers and sisters. These nawasib, their arguments are very easy to knock down when they come and use these against the Shia. But all the Shia need to do is just study a bit and read. So we see Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, many people know that He describes people as deaf, dumb and blind. Does it mean they're literally deaf, dumb and blind? No. It's something that is metaphorical. It's a spiritual dumbness and blindness and deafness. We also find that Allah Azza wa Jal, we say for example, like these people's hearts, they're like stone, or He compares people to cattle. Are they actually cattle? No. Or they're worse than cattle because they do not take heed of the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal. So just to sum up, dear brothers and sisters, for the next episode, we will go into some hadith from the books of the Mukhalifin to see, can the dead hear? And we will show later on after that some of their tafasir regarding this verse. O Muhammad, إنك لا تسمع الموتى. O Muhammad, verily you cannot make the dead hear. So in a conclusion, what I said again is that these verses are metaphorical and describe the polytheists at that time who did not want to receive and submit to the word of truth. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم ولعن أعداءهم.
منهاجنا